Hello, everybody. Yes, we are back with Season 2 of the Aviation Spotters podcast. I am your host, Colin. I just want to thank each and every one of you out there listening for your patience for me to get back at this. I know it's been a couple months, but I just need to take some time off. Like I said, episode 0, it's a one-man band operation here, and even I need a break sometimes. But, we had some pretty cool stuff happen in the meantime. And it's been nice having a little time off from this. But you know what? We're back at it, Season 2 of the Aviation Spotters podcast. And I got a really good slew of guests lined up, ready to go. And I think you guys are really going to appreciate who's going to be on here and who's going to be coming on and talking with me on the AvSP. So since I thought we're going to start Season 2, I wanted to get one of my really good friends on here who happens to be, and more importantly, be one of the day one listeners and who has actually given me a lot of feedback, a lot of constructive criticism, and really helped me along with this podcast. And he also has a couple stops at some F-15E Strike Eagles, so how could I say no? So it is my pleasure to introduce my very, very good friend and barbecue pitmaster, Mr. David Honan. Dave, my friend, how are you doing this evening?
I am good. Thank you, Colin. And yourself?
I'm doing good. It's getting colder here in Boise. Don't know if it's fall or spring, but it's getting colder, and definitely the seasons are changing, but I'm doing good, man. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. You've already had snow out there.
Yeah, we have snow on the ground. It's really weird. The beginning of beginning of October, we literally went from almost pushing 90 degrees to the end of the month, I'm in full winter gear. And I literally can't tell if it's spring or winter here, but, the year's 2020, so, we could be doing both right now. So who knows? Anyway, man, like I said, you're one of the first listeners, and you really have provided a lot of constructive criticism and feedback for the podcast, so I really do appreciate that. But and I had to have you on here at some point, right?
Yeah, well, you're welcome. I definitely want to help see this get better and improve, and I'm glad I can lend an ear and a few words to make that happen, and happy you invited me on. Absolutely,
and also you've helped me out with some other stuff, and we're actually going to get to that later on. But anyway, man, let's get to know you a little bit, man. So, where you're from, how you got into aviation, and we'll kind of go from there, man.
So I am originally from Albany, New York. I grew up there. My childhood home, from my first memories all the way through graduating high school, was directly under the approach for Albany County Airport Runway 1. And so I had exposure to airplanes from the very beginning. My grandfather would take me out to the airport. There's a little spotting area right at the approach end of Runway 1. We could watch planes touching down, and in the early days of my childhood, the airport terminal was open with a viewing deck on the roof above all the gates that you could go out to with no tickets. This is all way pre-9/11 stuff in the mid-late 80s. So that was my early exposure to aviation. I got a scanner when I was a teenager, primarily for photographing trains, which was always my biggest passion, at least until the last few years. And couldn't listen to trains necessarily from where I was, but I did listen to Albany Tower and Approach, and also ATC for traffic passing over Albany, going into the New York City metro area. So it was fun hearing all the European accents on the radio. Couldn't hear the controllers themselves, but it was neat listening to the airplanes respond with relaying the commands for changing course or altitude to speed, etc. I now live in Snoqualmie, Washington, about 30 miles east of Seattle. I've been out here for, it'll be 14 years in a couple months. Came out here to work. I'm a civil engineer by trade, and been here pretty much since right after college.
Actually, so I have a kind of funny story about the Albany airport. One of my coworkers is a really big aviation geek like I am. He actually tunes into the Albany webcam every so often just because he can. So I'm going to definitely have to tell him that. But, that's where I met you, was in Seattle multiple times when I take my annual trips up there, and luckily when I was up there in early September, yourself, and a couple other friends, we did go out to barbecue, which was a really good evening to see everybody. But yeah, we kind of touched on your other hobbies. You're also into train spotting too. I know that when you've come out my way here and there, you've always trying to kind of hit the rail line. So for those that don't really know, like I do, I don't know anything about trains or anything like that. Kind of just like in like a general layman's term, kind of how can you compare train spotting to plane spotting?
First, it's railfanning.
Okay.
Train spotting is more of a European term, and it has a connotation kind of along the lines of the folks who like to, and I don't mean to cast aspersions, but the folks who like to collect registrations of planes that they see. Train spotters do the similar thing for seeing the equipment that goes by. I'm more of a, what I would say, railfan photographer, where I try and focus on photographing the trains. It's a lot more interesting in a way than airplane photography, because you aren't limited to the terminals where the trains originate and terminate. You've got the entire stretch of the railroad to photograph. Whereas with airplanes, they're 35,000 feet up, and all you're going to get is a little bit of a dot and some contrails in the sky. Trains pass through an incredible, diverse variety of scenery. Deserts, mountains, rolling hills, and you can find fascinating compositions anywhere you go. Your part of Idaho has some particularly neat scenery along the Snake River corridor. That's one of the things that attracts me there. Also, the rail line that runs north from Pocatello up to Butte, Montana, is well regarded for its amazing scenery, and unfortunately, it only sees maybe one train a day. So you got to be lucky to get out there the right day, the right time, and hope you get a train.
Yeah, I've seen some of the trains pass near Glenns Ferry when I go drive down to the Magic Valley area pretty often, and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cool picture, but yeah, I'm not really into trains and all that. But I know that you've had a couple cover shots on some Railfanning specific magazines, right?
Yeah, I've had the cover of Trains magazine 3 times. I've had a feature story in there. I've won their photo contest. I've placed in a few other of their contests. I've been on the cover of some other magazines. One of them is now defunct, unfortunately. I've actually just now have a 4-page story on the transit scene in Seattle and photographing that in the pages of Railfan and Railroad magazine. The
cool.
December 2020 issue, find it on newsstands. I actually need to find a copy for myself. Embarrassingly, I don't have one yet. That's no fault of the magazines. I need to go find one.
Yeah.
I've also had a number of photos published in railroad industry publications. A decent bit of side income for quite a number of years has been corporate calendars. Union Pacific Railroad, TTX Company, Montana Rail Link. Those are all amongst some of my clients, so to speak. It's more of a, I don't want to say a contest so much as maybe a photo call, but I've been fairly regular in their publications over the years. And then also on my professional side as a civil engineer, the American Society of Civil Engineers hosts an annual bridges photo contest that they use to locate photos for their own annual wall calendar. I've been lucky enough to have a number of my photos selected for the calendar from contest entries, and I've also been a judge of that contest twice, which has been an incredible honor.
That's pretty amazing, man. I mean, I know that you've done a lot of train stuff, and I've seen some of your covers, but I didn't realize actually how many covers and how many photos you've actually have on that sort of stage. And is it as popular as aviation photography, or is it kind of a smaller group of individuals?
It's extremely popular, but nowhere near as popular as aviation photography. I'd say it's probably about an order of magnitude less in the number of people who are engaged in it. In some ways, it is less accessible than aviation photography. Every town has an airport. You can see planes in the sky, but you kind of have to go to where the trains are.
Yeah.
If you look at, you go to a newsstand, and look at the number of railroad publications versus the number of airplane publications, you'll see that there's, almost a probably 4 or 5 to 1 difference in the number of airplane publications that you see out there versus the train stuff. Yeah, it's aviation's definitely more popular globally than railfanning is.
Yeah.
But part of the draw of railroading is that tie that to the heartstrings, so to speak. Everyone has the train around the Christmas tree or train themed Christmas ornaments. That kind of holiday association is very strong with trains. A lot of tourist railroads do Santa train or some of the more themed branded experiences. So there's very much a focused effort on getting young kids engaged with trains. So you see that a lot too. Thomas the Tank Engine, only one of the most popular brands in the world. I used to work at the Great Train Store when I was in high school before that business went bankrupt. And we had an entire corner of the store devoted to the wooden Thomas the Tank Engine series of toys. It was incredible.
Wow.
It was definitely our biggest seller come the holidays.
That's pretty insane, man. I also said earlier about having to go out and shoot trains in their natural scenery and stuff like that, and that's kind of the same way with some jet aircrafts over a certain lake and maybe a certain canyon. But we'll get into that later on. I know a lot of people are going to be wanting to hear about that, but right now we have to know one more thing about your hobbies before I move it back to aviation very quickly. Is the barbecue. Yes, I said he's a barbecue pit master, and there's a running joke between all my friends in this kind of group that I'm in with Dave, and we always have to say, is the barbecue Dave Honan approved? So, real quick, just tell them about the barbecue and how you made your own smoker and all that.
So, it's really funny, actually. Before I met my wife about a decade ago, I wouldn't touch meat that was on a bone. It was something that was completely foreign to me, because it wasn't anything that I had experience with growing up. And finally, maybe, a year, maybe not quite a year into dating, I'm over at her folks' place. They're having dinner, and her father makes ribs. And I'm sitting there at the dinner table eating ribs with a fork and knife, with everyone looking at me going, what the F are you doing? So that was my introduction to barbecue. It took a few more years until I got kind of more serious into looking at good barbecue. I visited a friend who lives in Texas, and she and her husband took me to the Green Mesquite in Austin. It was their favorite place. And then that really opened my eyes a little bit more. Soon thereafter, they came out to visit us here, and they gifted me a book called The Prophets of Smoked Meat by a Dallas-based architect who fell in love with barbecue after he moved to Texas. The book proved to be so popular that he ended up getting hired as the barbecue editor for Texas Monthly Magazine. But reading through that book and the way that he describes what good barbecue is made me realize that a lot of what I had been eating wasn't. And there really aren't that many places out here in the Northwest that do barbecue well.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
By well, I mean you are putting all of your attention into making the meat as good as you possibly can, and you're not disguising it with sauce. That's my personal philosophy, and I know there are a number of regional specialties of barbecue all over the place. There's Texas style, there's Kansas City style, there's North Carolina style and South Carolina style. And then jump back to Texas, there are at least 4 different subspecialties of Texas. There's Southern, there's Central, there's Western, there's Eastern. I'm sorry, by Western I mean Hill Country. It's
there you go.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of specialties in there. So I decided at some point that I wanted to start making my own ribs at home. I had my propane grill, and I learned how to do indirect heating on there. So it was kind of faux smoking in a way. You put some chips in a packet, you put it on the burner, and you make some smoke, and you get some taste in the meat. Finally, after a couple years of that, I got a cheap smoker from Home Depot, one of those $125 specials, basically made out of tin foil. Doesn't hold heat worth a darn. The first time I tried to cook a brisket, it was on for 12 hours and barely got to 185 degrees. It tasted okay, but it was like trying to chew on a shoe. Not terribly pleasing. So finally I said to my wife, look, I want to get a good smoker. And the holidays and my birthday are kind of, pretty close together, so maybe we can, put a bunch of money as a gift towards this, and I'll figure out the rest from my paycheck and my photography earnings. So she talked to her mom, and they came back to me and said, we know you're picky. If we get you something that's expensive, there's going to be something wrong with it inevitably that you're not going to like, and it's just going to bother you forever. So what we're going to do is we're going to get you a welder, and you're going to build your own. So I went to my buddy who's a boilermaker, and I said, what welder should I get? The Home Depot model that my wife had been eyeing, that didn't fly very far. So I ended up with a Miller. And then my wife works for a contracting business. The owner of that business, his brother, runs a different kind of contracting business, and was able to source in pretty quick order a 155-gallon propane tank that had been made in Southern California in 1948, some pipe, a bunch of scrap steel, and then through trading Facebook messages with my buddy, the Boilermaker, who's now in Colorado, I basically learned how to weld on the fly and built up the frame and attached the smoker to it. Got some help from my brother-in-law and my fitness trainer to get everything put together and up in the air. That's my barbecue story, and I love doing it. In fact, I've got a turkey brining in the kitchen right now. Thursday midday, I'm going to fire up the smoker and make a Thanksgiving turkey.
Hell yeah, that's going to be absolutely delicious, and you should send me the leftovers.
You're going to have to come out and visit for those and arm wrestle with my family.
I need to get back out there whenever this COVID crap gets over, and I believe I have missed a couple Dave Honan aviation spotter barbecues too, so I am due for one, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, man, before I lose half the listeners due to hunger issues,
podcast with a side of trains.
Yeah. So let's reel it back to aviation. So, kind of finishing off this topic, what would you consider your home airport?
I guess the closest public airport to me is Bandera State. It's a grass field, 4W0 up on Snoqualmie Pass. I don't really think that counts though. Not unless you're Josh Kaiser and you have Paul or Jason Rabinowitz. Or Jeremy Dwyer Lindgren. You should get him on the podcast. Anyway,
like I said, I have a whole slew of guest lines up, man. Don't ruin it for the listener.
Oh, I didn't know what your plans were. I apologize.
No, I actually haven't asked him yet. I'll probably.
You got to get JDL on. Anyway.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm kind of equidistant driving time from SeaTac, Boeing Field, and Payne Field. If I had to pick a home field, I'd probably say Boeing at this point. I tend to spend most of my time there.
Yeah. I go up there quite a bit too, and I would consider that my second home airport as well, because also BOI, BFI, it just kind of works out really well. Anyway, man, so let's start moving it to the next question, dude. What type of cameras have you used now and in the past?
So right now, I was luckily able to upgrade to a Canon 1DX Mark II over the summer. My wife was gracious enough to sell her truck and let me use the proceeds from that to not only buy the camera, but buy into its memory card system, which is not cheap. And I'm running that in parallel with a 7D Mark II. Even though for a lot of aviation spotting, crop sensors are advantageous to get the additional reach, I really felt that I needed to have the buffer that the 1DX2 packs. I can rip off 70 shots in a row with no pause, and that's at 14 frames a second, which is enormously helpful for getting the shot. The shot that a few people might have in mind of mine from recently was one of those towards the tail end of a string of 70 odd shots that it worked.
Yeah.
Previously to those two bodies, I've been all Canon since I went digital, so a 6D, a 5D, and I started out with a 20D when I graduated college back in 2005. Before that, I did film shooting on a Pentax ME Super.
Pentax, baby.
I started out with my grandfather's my other grandfather's old Pentax. Learned how to do all that. It had a broken light meter, which was fantastic, to be honest, because it taught me to really get a feel for what the lighting conditions were like. I had a handheld light meter that I could point at the sun. Primarily, that's how I used it. I know a lot of people point it at the target, but I felt more comfortable taking a direct reading from the sun. And I really got to a point where I could be just intuitive about changing light conditions once I had a base reading. And that's actually been a detriment of digital photography, is I've lost to a fair degree that intuitiveness for light levels. Now it's, you take a shot and you chimp the histogram and, okay, I need to adjust it by 2/3 and you're good to go. Back then, you'd be waiting a week or two before you got your slides back to know if you got it right.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that was my photography all through college, on a mix of print and slide film, depending on my budget of the month.
Yeah, especially that sounds quite expensive.
Yeah, slides were certainly not cheap. It was something like $6 or $7 a roll, and $5 or $6 a roll to process them. But on the flip side, that film will last for much longer than print film will. And I know I've got some aviation shots in there that I should dig out. Nothing great. It's all static stuff from ramps, but Delta 727 taxiing at Albany and the exactly. There's some cool stuff in there.
Yeah. What about lenses?
So currently my two primary lenses are the Canon 100-400L Mark II and the 28-105 f4L Mark II. I also have a 17-40 f4 for wide-angle stuff. I currently use the 1.4x extender Mark III when I need extra reach. I had been using the Mark II before that, but I found that the Mark II only allowed me to use 9 autofocus points on the 100-400, whereas the Mark III upgrade allows you to use every single one of the autofocus points on the 1DX2 with the extender on, which is pretty cool and very useful.
Yeah. Same thing with the 5D4. I used the 1.3 the 1.4 Mark III at red flag, and I could use all my autofocus points with the 5D.
Nice. The new generations of the Canon bodies are fantastic for that.
They really are.
I also have a 70-200 f4L non-IS that I basically retired at this point. The 100-400 is generally better for just about all of it except weight. I used to have a 300 f4L non-IS, which was so old that Canon wouldn't even support it through CPS about a decade ago. Yeah,
oh, wow.
I asked to send it in to clean it, and they're like, no. But I've sold that to a friend, which was great. A little bit of cash in my pocket, and he didn't have a bigger telephoto, so that worked out well. I also used to have a 28, actually, I still have it, a 28-70 2.8L, also very old. I fell down a hillside on Vancouver Island and sheared it off at the base.
Oh!
Yeah, that was fun.
Oh. That's just cringeworthy right there.
Thankfully, it was in the bag, so I didn't damage anything, but I went ass over tea kettle, and the lens suffered, and the 6D's autofocus hasn't really worked since. But I did that after I shot the goose up at Port Hardy Airport, so at least I didn't screw that up.
Yeah, there you go. You got some positive out the negative. Well, so with your 1DX Mark II, which you actually visited Boise, I believe, over the summer when it was, I believe, 105 degrees that day. You didn't even get out of the car, or else you wouldn't melt, I believe.
The poor puppy, she didn't want to get out of the car either.
Yeah. She did not.
Well, I mean, she's just all fur.
She really is, and she's an amazing photographer when we get into it.
She's the best.
Yeah, she does it. Guys, plot twist: it's not Dave who takes those photos; it's his dog Cara. I mean, there's
evidence of her with the camera. I mean, it's all her.
There is. You sent it to me. You sent me the photos. I mean, anyway. That's again. We're going to get to that, guys. So please don't tune off just yet. See, I'm trying to keep everybody going, so we're going to stretch it out. Okay, but we got to go through the questions first, guys. It's a season 2. I'm trying to be more, personable, but we still got to go through the AvSP questions. And feel free, AvSpotterspodcast at gmail.com. You can shoot me those recommendations for any new questions you want. So,
We're going to get a whole bunch of questions from more pets.
Yeah. Bring them. I mean, hey, if it gets me viewership, right?
All cat memes all the time.
Oh, I'm living with a cat right now, and I could totally make that cat famous. Let's before we start again, we're losing. God, we got to keep this aviation, man. So, what's your favorite airplane to spot right now?
All-time favorite airplane has to be the 747.
Oh yeah, I mean in Seattle. I mean that's.
Yeah, I mean we're obviously the production line's ending, which is a disappointment. But they're still living on in freighter service, and it's just such an iconic and distinctive airplane. It's drawn my eye forever and ever. I've always gone out of my way, except for when the two national ones came in recently. That was annoying. But generally, I will go out of my way to catch a 747 if the opportunity presents itself.
And that's So, what about your favorite airport to spot?
Probably BFI. There's such an enormous variety of traffic from the commercial side. Every single newly built 737 rolls through there. Boeing has flight test programs. The 787 was done through there. The 777X is going on right now. The eco demonstrator programs are run through there. They've used a variety of
KC-46.
What's that?
KC-46.
I haven't gotten there yet.
P-8.
I'm on the commercial side, man.
Hey.
There's the whole military discussion that goes on for BFI too.
Yeah, and we'll get to the biz jet
exactly.
stuff too.
But then there's cargo. UPS has a terminal there, and there's every so often there's random one-offs. I've caught a Kalita 742 there years and years ago before they retired them. Haven't seen an Antonov there yet, but yeah, you get some Linden. Sorry for the snap. Linden Air Cargo drops in fairly regularly. They like to use that as a holdover point when they don't have a contract active. As you mentioned a moment ago, there's a huge business jet presence there with multiple FBOs plus customs. And then with customs there, you'll get random stuff dropping in to clear customs before going elsewhere in the country. So, for example, in 2018, NASA sent the DC-8 to Germany for maintenance. And when it came back, it stopped at BFI overnight for fuel. And then later that year, I got the Samaritan's Purse DC-8 coming back from the Pacific Islands. So who can say they got two DC-8s in the same year at the same airport? That doesn't happen anymore. That was pretty cool. But that's just kind of an example of the random weird commercial stuff you can see at Boeing Field. And then as you alluded to a minute ago, on the military side, Boeing has active production programs for outfitting the P-8 and the KC-46, and unfortunately they no longer have the E-3 program there. I'm still bitter that I only caught one of them once. Never did get the Air Force bird that was there. That was only the NATO one once. But all kinds of transients. I've seen F-15s, 16s, 18s, Osprey, C-130s, C-17s, C-5s. I'm sure I'm forgetting some. And then for air shows, you get some of the cooler performers. You get F-22s. There have been Harriers there. The Blue Angels, typically based out of there when they come out here to do Seafair. And then general aviation is really huge at Boeing Field. It's got the short parallel runway that all the GA traffic uses. And you get to see the GA traffic and all this commercial traffic operating in really close proximity. And it's kind of weird to think you've got all these private pilots in their small little Cessnas and Diamonds and whatever getting wake turbulence calls for heavy jets on the parallel. So it's an enormous variety. Plus, every so often you get to see the ops chasing a coyote around, which was entertaining to see.
You just got
yesterday, it was. Yeah,
right?
I was sitting there having lunch at one of the spotting locations, and here comes a coyote trotting along down Taxiway Bravo. So I have the ops number in my phone. It's a publicly available number because they want people to report stuff. So I called it in and said, "Yeah, there's an animal on the field." And a few minutes later, there's two sheriff's deputies and an ops truck trying to box this thing in, and it didn't work out so well for them. Wile E. Coyote won this time.
Those sly coyotes. Yeah, that's the reason I also love going to BFI. Is it's just a great airport, such a lot of variety, and a really good spotting location, great backdrop.
And the other thing is the SeaTac traffic is right overhead.
That is true. I've actually got a lot of good shots of some of the 747s when they were still active pre-COVID, of them just flying right in, and you look up, oh look, 747, get the shot, and it's all good. And then sometimes maybe once in a blue moon, stuff from Payne Field will come and land and bounce there too. So, usually, like if I ever go up to take a trip to Seattle, I'll try and go up to Payne Field if I know there's something kind of cool going on and just check it out up there. But most of the time, I'll spend time at BFI because it's, plus if you need to get to SeaTac, it's, assuming the traffic's good, you could get to some locations at SeaTac pretty, I wouldn't say easily, but you can get there with time if there's enough heads up as well.
10 minutes to the north side, 15 minutes to the south side. So it's pretty easy to move between the fields, which is convenient.
It is, and the relationship with Boeing up there too, and the airport is really good between the spotters and the airport in King County itself. And that's kind of another thing too, is the very fine line, but a good relationship that everybody walks. And if you are going to go spot there, make sure you talk to some of these BFI guys about a lot of this stuff, especially near the Boeing side of things right now, especially how everything with the MAX is ramping back up. But just talk to a lot of these guys, get the lowdown, and you're gonna have a great time.
And before we leave that, I want to mention that right on the other side of Beacon Hill is Renton, where the 737s are built.
Oh, yes.
And it's also a big GA airport, so that's right close by as well. And it can be tight for morning shots, but there's a good spot on the south end of the field at a public park for afternoon viewing.
Just gotta dodge all the homeless guys on crack.
Yeah, there is that.
Come on, Seattle. You mean we have to mention that at least once, right?
You can.
Unfortunately,
I live here. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, I've been up there enough times already. I'm driven I-5 through downtown Seattle. I'll see it.
I used to work at an office that looked over on top of I-5. I mean, I've seen homeless camps setting stuff on fire and shutting down the interstate because there's this huge billowing fire underneath one of the overpasses. Crazy times.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, what's your favorite airplane of all time? Is it still the 747, or do you have something else?
Of all time, I'd have to say it's the 7.4. Same thing I said before. I've got a model of the Dreamlifter sitting here next to me on my desk, and it's just such an obviously the Dreamlifter is like a snake that ate a giant ass sausage.
Apparently, they had to apologize to Joe Stutter for making it so ugly.
I don't blame him for taking offense to kind of spoiling the lines. But aside from that unique derivation, it's just such a gorgeous airplane, and it's enormous. It just has such a presence.
It's like everybody stops and looks no matter when. That's an airplane that everybody knows. If you're not into aviation, everybody knows what a 747 is.
Friend of mine isn't an av geek in any way, shape, or form. He was recently up in Alaska and said, I saw this all-white airplane, and I wasn't sure if it was some kind of secret thing or whatever. And I was like, well, where were you? What was it? He goes, I was at Anchorage, and it was the jumbo jet, because he knows the 747 as the jumbo jet. He's also in his 70s, so he lived through the 737 and the 747 programs being basically coincident in their development. Boeing's rolling out the 737, and then you get the 7.4 showing up at the same time that a 7.4 can eat a 7.3. So for someone who's not an av geek, it's very recognizable.
It is. It really is. And when they come to Boise or go out to Mountain Home, man, I head out there. I mean, especially if there's a passenger, especially the cargo ones. I'm okay to miss because they're cargo. They're going to be around for a plethora of more years. Now it's the passenger ones that I'll stop, drop, and roll and go get right now, no matter who the operator is, just because the passenger is limited right now to mainly just charter and this handful of other passenger services. But do you have a least favorite aircraft that you don't really like spotting, or
regional jets? Twin in the tail, kind of don't care.
Yeah, unless it's a Mad Dog.
Or one of the very rare DC-9s that we get up here. Yeah, regional jets are boring, to be honest. There's so many of them, and frankly a tough time telling them apart. It's not an aspect of aviation that I really pay much attention to or care about, and that's my opinion. So I'm gonna
kind of especially in Seattle,
I'll save my
too.
pixels for the next plane.
That's fair. Shave those stutter counts. What about the rarest aircraft you've ever taken
Hawaii
a photo
Mars, hands down.
Please go on about this
I'm
one.
going to jump ahead to the spotting story and knock that one off of your questions checklist, because this is the story that I wanted to tell, since you always ask about one. In the mid 20-teens, I guess, I got interested in fire aviation and heard about the Martin Mars type of airplanes. And at the time, Hawaii Mars was still in service with Colson, and it was at the twilight of its active service career. I had missed when it had gone down to California to hit some of the fires out of, was it Lake Dunsmuir? Or no, Lake Shasta, south of Dunsmuir.
Lake Shasta, yeah.
And as far as I was aware, it was kind of just done. And I went up to southeastern BC with a friend of mine into the Kootenays to go photograph trains up there one weekend. And we're in Nelson overnight, and we get up in the morning, and we see this plume of smoke up on the hillside, and here at the gas station that they're doing a controlled burn. Okay, no big deal. We go off and chase our train and chase it down to Castlegar and then bring it back. And that plume of smoke has expanded significantly. The controlled burn became very uncontrolled. It was 15, 20 miles east. We didn't really pay much attention to it. Did our thing, got photos of the trains, went to a barbecue joint for dinner that evening because that's what we do. And get back to the States a couple days later, get back into cell service, and discover that Hawaii Mars had been called up to go bomb that fire working off of Lake Kootenai. We were 35 miles away where this thing was scooping off the lake and didn't know it and didn't get any shots. I was heartbroken.
Oh.
So fast forward a year. Now it's 2017, and Colson decides that they're going to take this thing to Oshkosh. So they do all the workups. They had, what's his name, Kermit Geary, I think is his... he came up and he learned how to fly the plane. And my buddy Brody Winkler was able to get out there and get some fantastic shots from Colson's chase boat as they were leading the plane up the lake. Oh, just amazing photos. I'm super jealous of them. So I emailed Colson, just on a whim, and I said, I know you guys are going to be leaving for Oshkosh. I would dearly love to get photos of the plane. Would you be willing to tell me when the plane is going to be leaving so I can try and get up there? And they emailed me back graciously, and they said it's going to be 7 a.m. on a Saturday, something like that. So I figure out that I can leave work at about 11 a.m., go home, get all my stuff, drive up to the border, get through customs, drive out to the ferry terminal at Delta Port, take the ferry over to Nanaimo, and then drive through the night out to Port Alberni. So I tell my boss I'm taking the afternoon off, and I set this plan into motion. Have plenty of extra time. I finally get on a boat at something like 9 o'clock at night, sail across over to Vancouver Island, and I probably get to Port Alberni at 1 or 2 in the morning, exhausted. I pull into Colson's parking lot. Never been there before, and should have maybe studied the satellite images a bit better than I did. But I pull in, and I can see a gate up ahead with Philippine Mars on the other side of it. I park next to that gate, and I figure I'm all set. People are going to show up in the morning. They're going to be coming right past me. Everything will wake me up, and I'm going to set an alarm for 6 just in case. Yeah, that didn't work out so well because I was in the wrong parking lot.
Oh, no.
I'm off on the north side of their facility, and it turns out the main entrance is on the east side. So everyone is coming, pulling in over there in the morning, all the traffic's over there. My alarm wakes me up at 6. I kind of stumble out of my Jeep, stretch a little bit, and I realize there's nothing happening. So I wander around and I realize, oh shoot, everyone's over here. Grab my bag, walk over, and there's the plane out on the water, with a whole bunch of people crawling around on it, and I've kind of missed it. I missed, getting to talk to the people and get photos of them ferrying out. And I see the boat coming back in, and I figure, well, that was it. Turns out there's one guy on the boat from the crew with a thermos that he needed to put more coffee in. So I talked to the Colson guy who was on the ground or in the boat, operating the boat, and I said, look, I came all this way up from the Seattle area to see this, and I'm kind of bummed I missed getting to meet the crew and whatnot. And he goes, I know the office didn't really tell you that you could do this, but hop in the boat. Take you out there. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So in the boat with the guy from the base, one of the pilots, and the pilot's wife.
Oh, my
and
God.
We motor on out to the plane, pull up alongside one of the doors. The guy gets out, leans back in, kisses his wife farewell, and then we motor off and do a lap of Hawaii Mars, and I get a whole bunch of really cool shots. The guy's gracious enough to just sit out there while they fire up the engines, and wait for them to taxi out. So the sound was amazing. So they taxi out on the Sproat Lake and take off to the the northwest. Go out a ways and turn back, and at about probably 10,000 feet over, just motor on by doing a flyover, and the sound just echoed everywhere.
That is absolutely amazing.
And then to top it off, I met a guy who talked the base guy into giving us a tour of Philippine Mars. So I got the grand tour afterwards. Went into Port Alberni, found the tourist steam train operation that was running that day, got a tour of their shop, and a few photos of the train in operation. And then on the way home, was able to stop at the Boundary Bay Air Show, southeast of Vancouver, and get some shots of a B-17 and a few other warbirds flying around before I staggered on back over the border and made my way home.
That sounds like the best weekend ever.
And that was just Saturday.
Oh, God, it was just Saturday. What happened on Sunday? There you go. So yeah, then you got all those amazing, absolutely just epic, stunning photos and pictures and all that, and then sleep. I mean, that's just like
it was perfect.
God. Yeah, that's just epic, man. All right, man. Well, let's move it into the part where I think everybody wants to talk about. And I think those are your shots up on VR 1355. So, I mean, this is the question where we're going to ask, what's your favorite event and or location to take photos outside of general airport spotting? And I mean, we all, I mean, I know it. So, I mean, just 1355. And, man, well, I'll kind of let you take it away on this one and just tell the listener about all this stuff. And then we'll maybe talk about some other little specific things, which I think the listener will find very interesting about that. So anyway, man, take it away on 1355.
So, almost 3 years ago, I went to my first red flag, and this is kind of how the story starts, with a couple friends of ours, and had no idea what the low levels really were about. And part of our plan was to go out to Star Wars Canyon for a day. So we... I was the only one who was old enough to rent an SUV, so I got stuck driving both ways. So we leave North Vegas at something like 4 or 5 in the morning and start heading west. We do the trip. We get up to Father Crowley. We drive east on the ridge a little bit and pull over and yeah, there's rocks. And a canyon.
Play the waiting game. Yeah, you get to play the waiting game.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to watch the rocks grow. If you're a geologist, oh man, you're in hog heaven. But if you're an aviation photographer, it's a little more worse than that.
And then a Super Hornet dropped in, and I was hooked. Yeah, it was. We probably had maybe 15 passes that day. We had
That's
one of the
good.
VX9 growlers buzz us right over the canyon rim in full burner. That was pretty sweet. And after that, I realized I was really interested in doing this because it meshed with my railroad photography hobby of getting out into the wilderness and finding great scenery against which to set the subject. In this case, it's an airplane instead of a train. It's a heck of a lot less predictable. So I started exploring VR 1355. It was, I live pretty darn close to the route. When planes can't get all the way up and they have to bail off because of weather, most of the time I'll hear them rumble over my place on their way back to Whidbey, at least as far as the growlers go. And I had heard about Rimrock Lake from here and there. I did the old watch the YouTube video trick and found a spot that I thought was going to be cool and was going to work and was going to be great. And I started driving out to this place and I got skunked. I made a bunch of trips, not really knowing what I was doing, and frankly, I think I saw something like 2 jets over 3 trips, and they buzzed over the top of the hill where I was set up and ran up the lake away from me. So I didn't even see what unit they were from. All I know is they were growlers. So that were my attempts in 2018. 2019, I got a little more adventurous. I actually snowshoed in there one morning at the end of March, and got some Army Blackhawks, which was kind of cool. No jets. That was one of the days that one of the aggressors, the blue painted one, Hornet, came up. Flew over the lake at about 3,000 feet, ended up at BFI, which I didn't find out about until I got back to Yakima that afternoon, and I was like, are you kidding me? I could have gotten the blue aggressor low level, except they didn't run the low level. Disappointing. So kind of more of the same through the summer of 2019. I started to look for different spots where I might have more success in at least seeing a jet. And my thought process was, if I can actually get a decent photo, even if it's just running straight and level, maybe I can post this online and get some interest. And I don't know. That was, again, not knowing what I'm doing. That was sort of my thought process. But I found a spot on the rim of a different canyon and set up there near Rimrock. And after a couple attempts, one morning I got a jet going through. Great, cool, I got a shot. And then one of my friends introduced me online to one of his Canadian friends who was coming down here to spend a couple days spotting Rimrock. And it turns out that he had been doing much the same type of exploration that I have been and knew some other spots. But we started out at this one spot that I'd gone to where I'd finally gotten the jet. And we set up there one morning. And we hear some noise, and we look down 3 miles away down the valley, and here go 4 F-16s from Luke. Just ripping through, over the top of the ridge and gone. No shots. At least nothing close. Then an hour behind them, there goes a C-17 doing much the same thing. So that was frustrating to see. We moved to a different spot for the afternoon. We actually got the Vader CAG, but it was all blue sky and awfully shadowed, so that hardly counts. Went back the next day, watched 4 Singapore Strike Eagles go right over the top of us, which was cool to see. It was frustrating to not get them down low, but so be it. The only time I've seen them over there, by the way. So after that, I couldn't get back for a little bit, but my Canadian friends told me about, and I will freely admit that I didn't find this spot on my own. They showed me how to get to a ridge spot on the south side of the lake. So my wife and I planned a camping trip for early September. I went down there on a Thursday and hiked up this ridge, got up there, and ended up catching something on the order of a half dozen or 8 jets that day. First one was from VAQ 139, and it turned out that the very first jet I caught on the low levels was the Finney flight that was being given, an incentive Finney flight being given to a guy from one of the C-40 squadrons as he was wrapping up his Navy Reserve career. So go figure, post the photo on Facebook and that evening it's made its way through the squadrons at Whidbey and to this guy who messages me and says, hey, you got me on my Finney flight. Can I get the photos? Absolutely. So that was kind of the start of it. I went to a different spot the next day. Turned out to be not so great. Went back there the day after and got a couple Marine Legacy Hornets that one of our mutual friends had said were at Portland, and we're going to be doing a local flight. And they flew right over my head, pulling some vapor. That was pretty cool. And then I just started going back to that spot on the south side of the lake again and again and again, and it just started clicking. It seemed like 3/4 of the jets, at least the growlers, would go that way. They like to run the little twisty route to get in there, and that was kind of the start of it. And then this year, I took the winter off because it's the winter.
It's winter way up the mountains. You don't want to be
messing with the
mountains in the winter.
It's gray,
especially in the Cascades.
I mean, it's socked in gray all the time. They can't fly through it. So what's the point? I started going out and exploring VR 1350 as it started to get to springtime, so it could at least get some low-level action in before the snows melted. And then finally went back to Rimrock at the beginning of April. Took my time hiking up one morning, get up to the top. I had literally gotten to the spot. My bag is still on my back, and an F-15 roars around the corner.
I remember this morning.
I'm standing there dumbfounded going, are you bleeping kidding me? That's an F-15. And it takes my mind a good second or two to go, hey, dummy, there's probably another one coming. So it's a scramble to drop my bag, get the camera out, make sure all the settings are right, get it up in the air, and sure enough, here comes the second one. Rips around the corner, flashes past in front of me, and I get a few shots, and I sent them off to you and said, dude, this is awesome. So thank you for forwarding those on to the crews. That was it was nice to hear back from them that they like the shots, and
well, they don't just love them, Dave. I'm sorry, like them. They love them. All right, trust me. When I was at this one of the squadrons for an event that I did on behalf of the squadron, they were talking about you and the photos that you take of them and how appreciative they were of that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to be hanging out in the squadron here very
really
soon.
Humbling.
And I know some of them actually listen to this, so I'm not going to, obviously for reasons, I'm not going to name who they are, but or what squadron, but they really do appreciate the work that you put into making them and showing their families that what they do on a daily basis. And on behalf of them, I know that they really do thank you for everything that.
This is something that it's what makes all the effort that I put into this hobby worth it, is to be able to share the photos with the crews, and to get that feedback is they're serving our country. They are they're putting aside what other things they could be doing, and basically whatever the needs of the service are, they're going to go do. And that I kind of see this as a way of giving back for that service and that sacrifice that they make.
I agree with you. So much on that. And a lot of people do this. They go out and they try to find these low-level locations for glory and for views and for fame and all that. And people like you and I, we want to get these photos out to the crews. And I will say that because of what you have posted and all the stuff and the work and effort you put into it, I have started looking. I've been doing this for a while now, and with the help of another spotter who I won't name, but that spotter knows who they are, and I cannot thank you enough for all the help that spotter has given me, and I've helped that spotter in return. But I went out and I found some of the local low levels in Idaho. Helps from the pilots and the crews and all that, but I actually coordinated with some of the Harriers that were deading at Mountain Home Air Force Base, and we got low level shots of Harriers through this location, and same with the local A10s through this location, and we actually are supposed to have some T-38s fly through, I believe, today, but due to it's starting to get winter up there, so due to icing, that didn't happen. But BL T-38s, but yeah, the little black jet. But because of you showing that this stuff's possible, the spotter and I really do thank you for kind of showing that it's possible, for perseverance and stuff like that. And you also helped me a lot with this low level stuff as well, also with another friend of ours as well. But for me, thank you for everything that you've done to make a lot of this low level stuff happen for me.
I mean, it's a niche aspect of a niche hobby, and it
really is. Yeah,
I feel like that it's how do I put this? Going to an airport is easy because the planes come to you. They have to land on the runway, basically. Unless you're shooting seaplanes or helicopters. But for jets, they have a place they have to go, and you can set up all day and you can catch them all. And again, this is part of my railroad photography background. Is I enjoy the challenge of going somewhere and finding a scene that's interesting, has a nice background, whatever that might be, and being able to put the subject in that scene so that you can distinctly say, this photo was taken here. Whether it's basalt cliffs or a lake or evergreen trees or scrub brush, or in the most famous case, the red rocks of Star Wars Canyon, or the sheep-colored covered hills of the Mach Loop. Every low level has something unique to offer, but it's such a challenge to get those shots. And I feel like there's a lot of people who don't want to, maybe not don't want to, or aren't willing or aren't able to invest the time and effort it takes to make the most of those opportunities. And don't get me wrong, for as many shots as you've seen me post, there are misses and misses and misses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's trial and error. There's days that you go out there, you get nothing, or they fly right past you. It's that's another thing too, is, being able to research these locations for years and doing a lot of things, like this is your spot, right? It's like your playground and all that sort of stuff. And, that's what kind of, it just hurts when, you tell people get to know about this, and then they there's everyone comes up in force, and then something stupid happens, and then it's gone forever. And, it just really hurts to see locations like that. But it, you said it perfectly. It's a niche. It's that first jet that you get ever low level, or after that research of that spot. I'm really sure that you felt the exact same feeling that I did. As I remember when I was at the spot my first time after the research I've done, and I saw that A10, I was like, is that a bird? And I'm going, no, it's low. And I'm going, oh my God. I literally I stood there for about a good 5 seconds saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Then I realized, my brain's like, hey, Colin, you should probably put your camera up here and get the shot of them. And that was, it's that adrenaline rush. It's just that feeling that you get, that sense of accomplishment. Like, hey, I set out to do something. And, I've had help from another person who I can't thank that person enough. I mean, they know, like I said earlier, they know who they are. I don't want to give obviously their identity away, but it just has that sense of awesome accomplishment and just that adrenaline rush you get when you see a jet in the wild.
And I want to offer a caution about this too, is that a lot of people have become accustomed to Star Wars Canyon and the Mach Loop, where the low-level path is very narrowly defined. VR 1355 is a 10-mile wide, 250-mile long corridor. And the pilots have wide discretion to fly wherever in that footprint they want, so long as they're making progress from one end to the other. So it's extremely easy to find a spot that has a view. Will a jet pass? You never know. It's maddening the number of times that I've seen stuff go by. And I'm in a good spot. I got this great view, and they're 5 miles away. They're on the route corridor. They're doing their thing, and I get nothing. The Red Hawks out of Portland remain one of my my nemesises, so to speak. I've seen them out there a number of times, and just never where I am. It can be really frustrating to put in all that effort to get to a spot and have the great weather, and have nothing. I was out at one of a spot that I found near Rimrock with one of our mutual friends earlier this summer. We watched three ships of growlers fly up a different valley, and 2 of those 3 ships had color birds in them, and it drove us bonkers. I mean, that was, if we had been at the usual spot, the one I mentioned earlier, we would have had probably close to 15 jets that day. Plus helicopters. I think there were at least a couple Blackhawks that went through. And if we had stayed later, we would have gotten... Gosh, how many Apaches went through? Something like 10 Apaches went over us while we were hiking out in two flights. It was ridiculous. If we'd been in the normal spot, would have had a freaking amazing day. And because I wanted to do something creative and different, I blew it. I picked a spot that was on a valley that I figure about 3/4 of the growlers usually run, and for whatever reason, that one day they went a different way, repeatedly. It's this hobby can be so maddening, but when it all works out, that 1 second,
for that one
second you're out there, and the jet comes around the corner, and you go, "Is that an F-35?" Like, I know there's an air show in Pasco tomorrow. Is that an F-35? And it was. And there was another one behind it. Yeah. That was, and I'm getting chills down my spine remembering, because it was that. To see Bayo and the safety officer out there on the 55 was remarkable. And full shout out to our buddy Julian El Nasser, whose photos were publicized by the demo team. And that was awesome to see his work get recognized for getting the shots. Full applause for him.
Yeah, no, hands off to Julian. Those were pretty awesome. Real quick, what is your favorite shot or string of shots that you've got on 1355 before we start wrapping this up?
Maybe recency bias comes into this. I was up there in October last month, and it was a pretty damp day. There were some scattered low clouds, a lot of moisture in the air, and this growler came up the lake, punched burner to get around a corner and pop over a ridge, and right when that happened, all kinds of vapor started pouring off the jet, and right as it got perpendicular in front of me, shockwaves coming off the wingtips and the pods. It was just absolutely ridiculous. And that's what I was talking about earlier with the having the the 1DX Mark II and its burst capability and then the buffer. Without that massive buffer, I would have been capturing shots as this jet's coming towards me, going, "That's amazing, that's amazing, that's amazing," and I would have buffered out before it got to me. So, that saving your pennies and getting a good body that's got the capability for this stuff is definitely a worthwhile endeavor if you're serious about low-level photography. Because it was...
Yeah, absolutely.
That one instant where the jet was perfectly perpendicular, that the shock waves really expanded. And on the frames on either side of that, they're markedly shorter. And this is... what's 1/14th of a second? That's what we're talking. And I haven't put the photo up yet, but 5 frames after that, I got the full burst of vapor wrapped around the back end of the jet. 5 frames.
I remember you sent me some of them, like Razir took them and said, "Hey, just don't show anybody this yet," but I think you sent me that one, and my God, dude, those. I mean, granted, I'm biased towards the Strike Eagles, but dude, that was. I honestly think that those are the best photos you have ever taken, just hands down, out of everything that I've seen you do.
There's a 20 by 30
Absolutely.
canvas print sitting here in my office that I'm going to hang on the wall this weekend. It's a once in a lifetime shot. I mean, it's something you can get at an air show because they're trying to do that, but there's with 2 pods on, there's no way that the jet could go supersonic. So don't even consider that anyone was breaking any rules. The crews are allowed to use burner for operational needs. So, there's a bridge line right in front of him. He's going to pop burner to get up and over that. And it was a moist day. It's just a perfect combination of all the factors to make it happen. And, Kara got the shot.
Yeah, she did.
Now, I've also gotten some really cool photos of Strike Eagles this year, too, which has been fantastic.
I'm jealous.
There have been a couple passes that were particularly memorable. One of them at Rimrock with all kinds of crazy vapor wisping along the top edge of the jet, and then another one at another location where, if you look closely, I don't know how they found me, but they found me. And the sniper pod is aimed right at me. You can see the blue of the pod. It's the blue reflection is aimed right at me. I'm going to re-say that. You can see it in the pod. The blue reflection of the lens is aimed right at me. And all the other jets I got that day, the lens is just free rotating with gravity, pointing generally straight down. So yeah, that was pretty cool that somehow they managed to spot me. I don't know if they saw my bag or Kara or what, but yeah, they locked on.
I wanted to text a couple friends now and ask, hey guys. So I'll see if I can get back to you on that one, see what I can find out. But anyway, man, I'm speechless, dude. That's some absolutely amazing stuff. But anyway, dude, let's start wrapping her up, man. Do you have any tips, words of encouragement, or anything else you want to add and kind of say to the listener?
Shoot for yourself. That's the most important thing, is don't try and impress others. Don't get wrapped up in online popularity contests and trying to get likes and shares and everything, because it's just inevitably it's going to lead to disappointment. I mean, I've been doing this low-level stuff for a couple years now, and I still don't have 1,000 followers on Instagram, and I don't care. I've just looked at my phone. I got 983 followers, and for a while I was like, why aren't I getting more? And now I just don't care, because that's not important. The important thing, as I said earlier, is for me is getting these photos and sharing them with the crews, because those are the people that matter. Is being able to give back. That is far and away the most rewarding aspect of this hobby, is capturing those images for them, because how else are they going to get them? They can do air-to-air shots with their cell phones when they're up at 15 or 20,000 feet, no problem. You get cool views with the great scenery and the big mountains and everything, but to get the jets in action down low, they can't do that. You need a Top Gun-like setup where you've got a chase jet and crews that are specifically qualified for low-level action in order to try and do that. Whereas you and I setting up on the side of a hill, we're going to be able to get those shots without going to all the cost of renting an L-39 or whatever the other chase ship is. To be able to get those images and share them is the most rewarding aspect of this. I kind of changed the question a little bit. But yeah, so that's what appeals to me is getting the images to share with the crews that serve our country.
Yeah, and I couldn't set it better myself. It isn't a popularity contest to shoot for yourself, and I've always said that. And to be yourself, and I really don't care. Like I'm about to hit 4,000 on Instagram, but at the end of the day, I posted 1,300 shots, and if you like my content and you're supporting me, thank you so much. But if you're not a big fan, then I understand. I mean, it's not your cup of tea, and I accept that. It is what it is, but yeah, just shoot for yourself. I don't think we can emphasize that enough, especially right now. Everybody's like, oh, no followers, I don't know followers, blah blah blah. Shoot for yourself. Trust me, your mental health would be so much better if you just stopped caring about your followers and your likes. It's not about that. It's about your content.
Absolutely.
And the people who really do care about your content. Anyway, man. Well, where can people find your amazing works? I know you mentioned Instagram, but get the listener a place where they can go view those absolutely stunning photos.
The best place for my aviation photography is Instagram. DW Honan, that's Delta Whiskey Hotel Oscar November Alpha November.
Like a true Avi right there.
Also ham radio operator.
Yeah, my dad's one of those too, so trust me, that's how I grew up. I grew up knowing the alphabet, not as an aviationer, but because my dad's a ham. So.
And then DW Honan also on Twitter and Flickr. There's less aviation content on Twitter, and frankly, there's none on Flickr. I sort of just stopped posting there a while ago. Obviously the account's still active, but it's 90% railroad stuff. If you're interested in my railroad photography, that's probably one of the best places to go. On Facebook, David Honan Photography. I usually cross-post my aviation stuff both there and on Instagram. You'll also see some of my horse photography on the Facebook page, because that's where I share photos from the events that I shoot. My website is davehonan.com. Go through there if you want to buy prints. If you see something once you get the smug mug that you found on my Instagram that's not up there, shoot me a note. I'm happy to add it if you're interested. I've also got, I think, about 10 photos on airliners.net.
Which have all gone top.
No, one of them did. Maybe two.
There's been a few that have gone top. Trust me.
Okay, 3.
A little bit more than that. Stop being humble.
No, it's seriously, it's only been 3.
I swear to God, all 10 have gone top.
Oh God, no! Not like the random 737s at Moses Lake against the blue sky.
I'm going to go on there right now after we're done, and I'm going to check it out.
Okay, it's BOAC arriving at SeaTac against Mount Rainier.
You got the the tent tanker at Moses. No,
that on there? Oh, I guess it is.
Yeah, there's a first photo you got on there.
That didn't go top.
Yes, it did. I swear to God, it did. Yes, it did.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't even notice.
Yes, it went top.
Okay.
We all posted in the group chat about it that your photo went top.
It wasn't the DC-10. It was the Coletta 7.4 at sunset at Moses.
I swear. It could have been either or.
Okay, post this in the show notes, but I know the sunset silhouette of Coletta went top. And then the 730, the wrapped 737 over the road shot in front of the Renton plant, I think went top as well.
That one. Okay. Anyway, before we get sidetracked on what Dave's shots went top, but I'm gonna say my normal stuff like I always do, guys. Yeah, it is season 2, but some stuff never changes, and this stuff never changes. You guys know the drill. If you know anybody who wants to come talk aviation with me on the Aviation Spotters podcast, shoot me a email, askspotterspodcast@gmail.com. You guys know where to find me on Instagram, BOI Spotter, and Twitter, BOI Spotter. Also, check out the Facebook page. We're going to be updating that really, really soon. We're going to start posting a lot of cool stuff there. You're going to see some of Dave's photos on there, too. And shoot me a message on there. And please, 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 we are back. Just share with everybody who you think will appreciate this. You know, it's mean a lot to me, and I know some guys out there would really love to hear this sort of stuff. So please, please, please share it and just talk about it with people that you think you would. But anyway, that's going to do it for me here on another episode of the Aviation Spotters podcast. Dave, do you have anything else to add before we wrap it up?
I would be remiss if I didn't go back to something you said a few minutes ago about the Strike Eagle community, and your previous guest, Durfram, was kind enough to mention my photography, so I want to thank him for highlighting that. I really appreciate that. It was great hearing from him directly how much that those photos mean to the crews, and I hope to have more opportunities to hopefully see some of those jets out there.
Oh, trust me, you will. Just trust me on that. But and also, thank you for accepting my invitation as well after that episode.
Hey, you know it's there. And, if we arrange it just right, I'll fire up the smoker for you and maybe throw a brisket on.
Yeah, and then I'll chalk to some curries and we get some strike deals going through 1350 or the edge of the world. So anyway,
I've extended an open invitation to the firewood crews up at Whidbey to drop into my pasture for a barbecue, and they haven't taken me up on it yet.
Well, maybe if you entice them with some, some of that meat,
I tried.
Well, keep doing it. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me here on episode 13. First episode of the new season on the Aviation Spotters podcast. So until next time, guys, you know the drill. Keep those cameras ready and those batteries charged, and we'll catch you next time here on the Aviation Spotters podcast.